Alrighty. Okay, hey everyone. My name is Tom McQuillan. This is actually my first time presenting at this Labview user group, so thank you very much for having me and welcome to my living room. I'm very much looking forward to being able to present in front of real life people sometime in the future. Perhaps 2022 will be our year. In this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on quick drop shortcuts, but not exclusively quick drop shortcuts. I've just put stuff in the title. If I haven't spoken to you before, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Yeah, feel free to directly message me if you have any questions. Throughout this presentation, I have the chat window open on a different monitor. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the chat window and hopefully I'll see them. Okay. Okay, so again, for this presentation, I don't have any slides, but it appears like no one had any slides for this user group, so I'm not too special there. However, I am going to be showcasing Labview Scripting, which is a subset of VI Server, a lot in this presentation. And I'm going to start off with a very quick demonstration. Something which I showed at GDevCon, but I've slightly altered it. So it's a quick drop shortcut. So if I do quick drop as in control space, and then type in Stefan, who was our fabulous first presenter, if then do control and S, if we give it a few moments, Labview is going to get his LinkedIn profile picture, and then separate that profile picture into maybe 200 different sub-VIs. Those different sub-VIs I'm scripting, creating on the fly, changing their icon, and then I'm placing all of those VIs, all 200, onto a completely separate VI. So here we have the lovely Stefan, who I've made up of several different VIs, and just to prove that these are individual VIs, let's double click on one of these VIs. And you can see that this was a VI with a name, and this is the icon. If we open up that icon, we could do something fun. Let's make his eyes a vibrant blue, like so. Then close. And now you can see that, I've changed one of the icons, but this was all just to show what VI scripting can do. This was quite a straightforward version of scripting. Jörg asks, why are you using a much nicer photo than I used of Jörg in a previous presentation? Well, Jörg, if you're feeling left out, I can do control space and do Jörg, then control S. And at some point, actually, the picture I chose for Jörg is a higher resolution, so it will take longer. I didn't go into the effort of actually downsampling.
No. Tom, what I was asking is, why are you so much nicer to Stefan? Like making his eyes blue.
Oh, right. Well, I was thinking about giving him an eye patch, but the actual size of the sub-VI is only small.
Okay. Just joking.
Fair enough. Now, where did that VI of your go? Okay, maybe it wasn't created. But let's just dig into the background of how this code works. Actually, before we do that, in the chat window, if you've never used scripting before, could you just say no in the chat window? If you have used scripting, give me a yes or a thumbs up. So I'll give you a few moments to let me know, and that will just let me gauge like how in depth or how high level I should go. So a couple of yeses, a couple of nos. Okay, I know that there are 57 of us on this call, and I've received 6 responses, so don't be shy. Okay, so a couple of you know used it, but haven't created your own. Okay. Now let me show you some of this code. Now, unfortunately, because of having several monitors, it can be difficult to find the right VI. With me. Okay, so here I have a quick drop plugin called Script Labview Friends. And all this quick drop plugin does is refer to a file that's on disk, create, in this case, I think it's PNG or a JPEG, splits it up into individual VIs, it then places those VIs on a grid. So in quick drop, when you do control space, you then start typing a word, like Stefan here. You then do your quick drop shortcut, I can get the text which you've just written in, simply by using a property node. So the combi box here, get the text out, and then I'm creating this directory to an image that appears on disk. The first thing I need to do is create those 300 sub-VIs. Now I will just point out that I've made the screen resolution much smaller, so the code appears much bigger. In normal circumstances, please be aware that all of my code does fit nicely onto a single monitor. But in this piece of code, the general high-level introduction to scripting, I'm getting an image from file. And then from that image, I've got two nested for loops. And those nested for loops are essentially going to execute every 32 pixels horizontally and vertically, across that image. And then for each of those 32 by 32 pixel squares, I'm simply creating a brand new VI using a scripting tool. I'm using an invoke node of VI icon set from image data. And then I'm saving it and closing that reference. So the actual processing of creating a new VI, changing the icon, saving it, and closing it is no more difficult than this. It's actually pretty straightforward. If I close that and open up the next VI along, now this VI is actually going to place all of those sub-VIs on that block diagram and create that lovely image of Stefan. The way I'm going to do that is create a brand new VI, set the block diagram window to be open. I've then got an array of all of those VIs I created in the previous sub-VI. I'm placing them in a vertical and horizontal coordinate, and then closing them. So I hope you can see that there's not an amazing amount of complex code in here. If this is your first time using Labview Scripting, then you might need to enable scripting in your tools and options. And by doing that, you'll be able to see the scripting palette inside application control, where you can see things like new VI or place new object, etc. It's also worth noting that you should have hidden gems installed as well. There's a VI server and scripting subpalette. Again, this has loads of really useful tools, including the ability of getting a reference to absolutely everything just by its label, which is super powerful. So to enable Labview Scripting, just go to Tools, Options, VI Server. You then have VI Scripting enabled for both of these checkboxes. Okay, so there's a question here: is it by design you have not chosen to scale your parallel loops to number of CPUs. So in this, are you referring to the parallelism that I've put in this for loop?
Yes.
So this, yeah. So honestly, all I did was allow it to do automatic partitions with a set number of 8 parallel instances. It's things like this which are good enough for demonstrations, not good enough for actual production use. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look at where this VI actually lives in Labview. Okay, so as Darren and I think also Stefan mentioned, if you go into, if I make that a little bit bigger, Labview inside program files, resources, dialog, and then quick drop, and then down one more into plugins, you will see the plugins that ship with Labview, also the community ones you've installed as well, such as rearrange VI window, so Control Space, Control F. We'll come on to this one later. Insert, Control Space, Control I, Control T, Control A, remove and rewire, Control R, replace Control P, etc. And later on in this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to create one of these quick drop shortcuts from scratch. Okay, so just for an introduction, that's all I wanted to show you regarding what scripting can sort of do. You'll notice that I'm now on Untitled 1465. Perhaps I could do a bit better on memory management there. Okay. Now, when Jörg asked me if I wanted to do this presentation, I of course said yes, but I then thought it's been quite a while since I actually created a quick drop shortcut myself. And so actually earlier on this morning, I created a quick drop shortcut. And the one I created was based on this Labview Ideas Exchange idea that I submitted here, which is about the back propagation of the create user event data type. So for those of you who didn't know, if you have the variant to data function, like you can see here, you can back propagate your data type. So go from a Boolean control string or error out, then it will change your inputs to the variant to data. However, if you have a create user event, if you already have the reference, but you don't have the actual create function, it's going to give you a broken wire. And so I thought, you know, I may as well. Actually implement this as a quick drop shortcut. And Darren says here, I've always wanted backpropagation on the select function as well. Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah. Maybe I should have created the quick drop shortcut for that one. Okay, so the code is a bit, I'm not going to say rough and ready. I've still tried to write it well-ish, but I did only write it this morning, so bear with me. Okay, so I tend to use a variant of DQMH when I'm generating my code, which very often means I end up with clusters like this, clusters of user events where I've already defined my user event data types and my messages in between different modules. But I now need to create this VI called create user events. So typically, if I do bundle by name, and wire it up like so. Then do a create user event. You'll notice I have a broken wire, and suppose this was a custom type def. Suppose I didn't just realize it was an I32. It can take quite a long time to either go into your project, find your item, or use quick drop if you can remember the actual name of your type def. And so what I sometimes end up doing is right-clicking the terminal, create constant, then use the generate user event, like that, so I can create my data type, and then I can wire my code, like so. Or there are other ways of doing it as well, like you could create a copy of your user event reference, right-click, show control, and then get your data type that way. But I'll be honest, I always forget about the show control and show icon right-click menu. So I created a quick drop shortcut that basically does the process of creating a constant, placing down a generate user event function, create a constant of that, deletes this code, and then places down and wires up the code that you see there. So if I delete, select the function, do Control Space, Control G, yep. You can see that the create functionality is there. I can then select that, do Control U, and it's neatened it up a little bit. If I wanted to do error handling, I suppose I could do Control Space, Control Shift W, and yeah, it's a bit messy, but it has wired up your error clusters, your error wires. So let's have a look a little bit at the code which is behind the scenes for this. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, please let me know in the chat window. Okay, so to look at the codes for create user event from bundle by name, or BBM, just open this up directly from resources, and then do Control E to have a look at the block diagram. Now on the block diagram of this VI, I've taken advantage of some more of the template. So here I can find out, okay, what VI block diagram actually called this shortcut. If they're with selection list, I can find out, okay, which bundle by name did I actually select? Then from there, I can initialize my quick drop shortcut. And then this first section of code, all I'm doing is making sure I only selected one bundle by name. Looking back at it, it would have actually worked with multiple items in this selection list if I just put an array of them up here. But when I wrote this morning, I decided, okay, I'm just looking for one bundle by name to act upon. And then I'm using the toSpecificClass function to go from the GObject class down to a named bundler. And the really fun thing about Labview Scripting is all of these right-click menus that you get to learn all about, because it's not just called a bundle by name function, it's a named bundler, which is a bundler, which is a global function, which is a node, which is a G object. And trying to work out where that specific thing is in that right-click menu can be a little bit challenging. But essentially here, I'm getting the reference to that bundle by name function. Then in this sub VI, I'm looking for all of those unwired terminals. So the process I'm doing to find those unwired terminals is I use this function to get all of the terminals from that bundle by name function. I'm then getting all of the terminals past the second one. Because if you have a look inside this bundle by name function I have here, I'm pretty sure the indexing is 0, 1, then 2, 3, 4 for all of your inputs. Then here I'm just saying, okay, is the connected wire a reference? Yes or no? If it is a reference, then ignore it. If it's not a reference, add it to this array using a conditional, what's it called? Conditional indexing node, indexing tunnel. Then I create a nice array of unwired terminals. Okay, so at this point in the code, I've got all of the unwired terminals for the bundle by name function. Then in this section of code, I'm getting all of those terminals and I'm creating a constant. And the only reason I'm creating a constant is to find out the data type of that constant. From Darren's presentation earlier, it looks like I could have used a terminal data type. But here I decided to create a constant, and then I can work out the data type of that constant by using this, what's it called, the variant get ref num information function. Then that's just going to output an enum, and that enum contains, I think, all of the different data types that you can have within Labview, including user event. So if the data type is a user event, then I've got this true constant, and I just add all of those references to my array, to my arrays. However, if it's not a user event, I just delete the wires and delete the constant. Now, it's actually at this point, I want to ask Darren a question directly. I don't know if Darren's still here. Oh, it looks like he is because he's just made a comment. Now, I've chosen not to close these references because I seem to remember you saying we didn't have to if they inherit directly from G object, or so I've left them open. But if Darren, if you want to unmute yourself and correct me, feel free.
You don't need correcting. You never ever need to close a G object reference ever.
Woohoo! So have I done this correctly then?
Yes.
Great, awesome. Yeah, because if you have a look at some of my previous scripting code, I'm constantly like closing every reference because, you know, when we teach Labview courses, we say always close your Q references, always close your var references. So I got into a habit of closing absolutely everything. Turns out if it's inheriting from G object, don't bother. Okay, so just an overview. This specific VI, I'm working out the data type of the bundle by name terminals. And then in this VI, I'm creating and placing a generate user event function. So do you remember when I was creating this create user event function manually, I had to put down a generate user event function to try and get the data type of that user event. That's what I'm doing here. So I'm using this function, which is the new VI object function to place down a generate user event function. I'm casting that down to be a node. Then again, creating a nice array of them here. And then we get to a bit of a messier piece of code where I'm now programmatically wiring from a constant I've just made to that generate user event function, which I've also just made. As soon as I've wired that, I can create a constant. Then as soon as that constant, remember when you're using user events, that constant needs to have a label, and you may as well make that label something useful. So here I'm making that label visible, and I'm changing the text of the label to be the name that appears in the bundle by name element. I then delete things that we don't need, such as the generate user events node and the reference as well. And so all that remains to place down the create user events function and then wire it all up. So I can wire up the brand new data type to the input, and then I can wire from the create user event to the bundle by name. So I appreciate that I probably lost maybe 80% of you throughout that code walkthrough, but the overall takeaway or summary of what I've just shown you is anything that you can do manually in Labview, you can probably script it. And the way that you script it, I would make a note of everything you do manually, and then replicate that in G. So there's a question here. Where do you get the create user event enum? Okay, it looks like Darren's answered, which is good because I'm not sure I answered the question. Okay. Okay, so with that, the end result is I can now select a bundle by name function, do control space, control G, and it just saves me a lot of faff. And one thing you'll find is if you have an idea for a quick drop shortcut, you may as well just implement it, because like I wish I implemented this as soon as I realized it was an issue. So as Darren said, don't wait for R&D to do it. You can just do it yourself. Okay, any other questions so far?
Seems like you answered everything while you were going. You're too good at multitasking, Tom.
Oh, don't say that. Just wait until everything crashes in a bit. Oh, no, I need to have a bit more hope, let's say. Speaking of hope, you'll see that was a great transition. If I do, let's say, control space, type in hope, and then what's my quick drop shortcut? Control S. So control space, hope, event, control S, you'll see a nice picture of Hope. Oh, I can't remember her surname now, Hope Harrison. Now, Hope Harrison is someone who now works for MGI. So you might have heard of the MGI Solutions Manager or the MGI User Interface Manager. Hope now works for that company. Hope used to work for JKI for a couple of years. And I believe it was at JKI she created Panel Manager. Oh, sorry, she created Pain Relief. Now, Pain Relief is a quick drop shortcut, which I want to demonstrate to you now. And also on the subject of our giants are female, Hope is my nomination for our giants are female for this presentation. So let me bring over a fun user interface. Okay, so let's say you have an application where you're acquiring data and just displaying it on your user interface. So if we run this VI, we're getting some simulated data here, publishing it on the user interface. Now, I'm sure you'll all agree that this UI absolutely sucks. However, on the plus side, it does a lot more than some other user interfaces I've seen, in the sense of it still allows you to maximize it, minimize it, and resize. It's one of my real pet hates when I see a user interface that can't be scaled. Because if it can't be scaled, it means you can't do things like pin it to different corners of your monitor, etc. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration now of pain relief. And in order to do that demonstration, I actually need to create some panes. So the way that you can create different panes on your user interface is just to put down splitters. So if you right-click, go to Layout, you have horizontal and vertical splitter bars. And typically for my user interfaces, I'll have a horizontal splitter bar at the bottom. And so I have a nice section here where I can have the current status of my software. I can perhaps tell the user what the software is doing in the background, show the currently logged in profile, etc. I might have another pane right at the top of my user interface. And up here, I might have different easy access controls for the user. And then on the left-hand side, here, I might have a splitter that actually slides in and out. So when the user hovers their mouse over the left-hand side of their user interface, I can have this splitter come out and it shows me some more advanced options, perhaps. But now that I've created all of these splitters and run this code, it still doesn't look great. If anything, it looks a bit worse than before, but now at least the user has the ability to make the different sections larger and smaller. Well, I'm going to stop that. Okay, so to help us out with these different panes, I'm going to show you pane relief. So normally you should be able to do control space and then control A. Sorry, yeah, control space, control A. However, I think I've done something to my Labview environment because that no longer works for me. But usually control space, control A. But thankfully there is a tools event pane relief option here. So you can also pretend I'm using a quick drop shortcut there, control space, control A, and that brings up pane relief. Now you'll notice that pane relief nicely matches all of the different panes for my front panel in its own user interface. And if I select, let's say, all of the panes by double clicking, you can see all of these panes are now selected. I can do things like make all of these scroll bars visible. Or I could make them all hide. Or make them visible again. So I think this one is scroll bars off on runtime, off all the time, or on. Typically, I have all of my scroll bars off all of the time, and I programmatically control when the scroll bars become visible or not. I think that creates for a better user experience. So that was about the panes. We can also customize these splitters. So if I select this bottom splitter, I can say that this bottom splitter needs to stick to the bottom. So if the user resizes their user interface, that splitter always stays at the bottom. It always stays X pixels from the bottom of the screen. Now, speak of this distance from the bottom of the screen, this looks far too big to be a status bar. So I'm just going to increase that, and there looks about right. And you can see as I changed this number, it updated live, which is a really cool feature of this tool. Let's have that as 650 and have it as locked. And I'm sure you'll all agree that this splitter bar looks absolutely disgusting. But what we can do is have a size of 0. So now the user won't be able to even notice there's a splitter bar there. However, it still creates that pane for us, which is really nice. So I'll change the settings for some of these other splitter bars. Let's have that sticks to top, and that's also locked. And this one sticks left, and that can be locked as well. Let's just place that to one side and run this code. And now as I resize this VI, you can see that this bottom splitter bar is still there, and it's maintaining a set distance from the bottom of my code. However, this isn't resizing properly. So I'm just going to right click, then fit control to pane. Then by right clicking and fitting to pane, it's automatically selected scale object with pane. Now, if I run this code, if I resize, you can see it's got bigger. However, notice how it doesn't resize until I've released or triggered that new event. The easiest way to overcome that issue is just to right click one of your splitters, go into right pane or left pane, depending on the one you want to control. Pane sizing, and then select scale objects whilst resizing. Now, this is another direct question to Darren, I'm afraid. However, I've tried to do this programmatically quite a few times, but I can't find a scripting property for scale objects whilst resizing. So if you know of something that I'm missing, please let me know. So now, as I resize this, you can see that that chart is resizing straight away. And the final part of this demonstration I want to show you is how we can use this tool to rename different panes or different splitters. So if you pick one of these panes or splitters, let's choose this one. And I'm going to call this left-hand pane. And that's basically all I want to do with pane relief. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what's the point of naming one of these panes? Well, it becomes very handy if you want to do some more either scripting stuff or VI server stuff more generally on your block diagram. So if you do a VI server constant, so VSR even, VI server reference, you'll get this VI. Then from there, you can click it, go to splitter. And then instead of having like splitter 1, splitter 2, splitter 3, and then different panes, because you don't know what splitter 3 actually refers to, because I've renamed it using pane relief, you can see it's actually come up as left-hand pane. So I can select left-hand pane, and now I have a reference to it. So Darren's just posted a reply saying, looks like it's available with the set scrolling method of the pane class. So yes, I've seen the scale all objects invoke node or set scaling. However, that's set scale all objects. There's not an option there for scale objects whilst resizing, or at least I couldn't see one. So now that we have this, sorry, the curse of having multiple monitors. So now that we have that reference, we might want to do some interesting things to it. So let's say every second we want to just change the color of that pane. So if I do control space event mod for quotient and remainder, and then place that down on the block diagram, I can say, okay, so for once every 10 iterations, I want to change the color. Then, because this is timing out every 100 milliseconds, that should be approximately 1 second. Then if I do control space, then CS, remember that CS is case structure. And another quick tip, you don't need to click enter. You can just click directly onto your block diagram and start coding. And case number 1 is fine. So this case is just going to execute every 10 iterations of this while loop. And so every 10 iterations, let's now put down a property node. So if I do control space event RN, you'll see property node becomes enabled. And again, I can just click that directly onto my block diagram. I don't need to press space. I can wire this up. Even regarding pane property, if I did control space, then color, the wrong or American way of spelling, then control shift B, that comes up with the color method, also attribute in this case. Right click, change to right. I can just choose a random color. And sorry, I didn't show it there, but if you do control space and then X is just multiply. Another form, if you do color box constant or CSC, sorry, the BC, color box constant, it's just very quick to get access to the color box. It's one of those things which I can never remember where it is in the palettes. So what I'm doing here is getting a random number and then multiplying it by the largest color you can have, which is white, and then setting the color. So now if we run this code, you should see that every approximately 1 second, we can change the color of this pane. And that was made so much easier by pane relief because I could change the name of that pane. I could easily get a reference to it and then simply change the color. And I'll stop that. Okay, so in that demonstration, you saw I used quite a few quick drop shortcuts. For example, the case structure being CS. If you do RN, you get your property node. If you do CBC, you have color box constant. If you do an X, you get this multiply function, or mod. Mod, there you go, for quotient and remainder. Now, it took me quite a long time to try and memorize all of those quick drop shortcuts. But now that I'm not going to say I've mastered all of them because I still fail that, fail one of the exercises which Darren put out, but they make you so much faster when developing code. And Jorg's come on camera, so I'm assuming I'm out of time or approaching out of time.
So I've been looking for a decent way to hint at you. So thanks for understanding my hint.
Well, I'll just show you one more thing then. This is a game created by Darren called Falling Shortcuts. And if you just Google Falling Shortcuts Labview, it'll be your first result. Download it and run it. You'll see a function is now falling. Then in this text box, this is a read binary file, so it's just RBF, and it goes away if then a numeric constant comes down. So you can do NC or U8, or I think that's closed files reference. Now, because this is on easy, I have quite a bit of time. So if I'm not too sure, I can use context help. It's closed reference. So that's CR, this is string length, or SGL. And you can just go through this game, try and get as high a score as you can. And it does get quite addictive, diagram disable structure. Cool. So if anyone has any questions, comments, or thoughts that you want to ask, please do. If not, I think I'm over time. So please let me know. Also, if you know what index array is before this gets to the end, let me know as well. Thanks, Stefan.
So I think you answered most of the questions as you went, Tom. That's good.
Yes. Sorry, that was
Gregory asks,
index array.
Gregory asks if this is part of the CL Guru exam.
CL Guru exam. It's news to me if it is. Also, if you properly want to rock on, put it onto DNet mode. It didn't select it. And you can have some fun.
Awesome.
Cool. Feel free to kick me out.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that now. I wanna keep some time for Chris too and his bookmark topic. I have been trying to collect all the links that popped up throughout the presentations. Also the link to this game and to the other one from John Medland. All of that will be in the slides that we'll distribute afterwards. So make sure to check back to the NI forums of WUELUG, where you can then find the slides. Okay, Tom, thank you so much for doing this customized thing on short notice. It was great to see how QuickTrap works behind the scenes and what we need to do to create our own QuickTrap shortcuts. I haven't gotten around to actually ever try that, so it's good to see that it's reasonably straightforward. And we'll definitely make use of that ourselves. So thank you very much.
Stuff. No worries.
Awesome. And extend the same thing to you. We'd love to have you back on sometime. There's so many things that need to be talked about and that you already have talked about. So maybe you can find the time again sometime, so to let us tap into your big bag.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be good to travel out to Germany one day.
Yeah, that would be one thing. That would be awesome. Sometime we'll get back to that too, I guess. Some NI days or whatever, hopefully.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay. That'd be great. So thanks, Tom.
Yes.
And